Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for narcissism in the air signs. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And right off the bat, I just want to state that this is not meant as some kind of diagnostic term of narcissism, just based off of videos that I've watched on YouTube and related material, because from what I understand and the responses I've gotten so far with the other elements, this is a big problem. There are a lot of people that are trying to cope with narcissistic abuse. And the other thing is, we could ask if narcissism is on the rise, if it's kind of even celebrated or encouraged by certain things, social media being something that really pops out at me. Instagram, Facebook, look at me, and just kind of celebrating the self in an excessive way, because I believe that we should be proud of our achievements and just have beautiful pictures. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, we're talking about excess. And narcissism goes far beyond admiring the self. I think that's one of those misunderstandings of what this actually entails, and it can really do a number on other people's heads, because these people can get inside of another person's head and manipulate them, make them question their own perceptions. They can put them down, and they seem to be, these narcissists, very good at the subtle put downs, so that you always are just wondering if it's you, if you're being too sensitive, or even if it's something blatantly insulting, slipping it in between other things. And some of those things might be, ending the message in a positive way. And so you're like, oh, I'm really mad that they said this, but then they said this. So I've done the other elements. The reason I group them in elements is so that you don't have to sit through a long video if you're just looking for one sign. But I realized all the elements have certain traits in common when it comes to that type of toxic, dysfunctional personality. And so I figured that would be the best way of doing it. But it's not going to be a timestamp deal, because I'm going to go back and forth. So just listen to the whole thing. Hopefully it can keep your interest. Now, each element has its own way that it interacts with others in a toxic and manipulative way. With the air signs, there is that mental type of manipulation. And I would say that it's extremely dangerous. I was trying to decide which is the sign or element most prone to narcissism. And I was thinking that perhaps it was either the fire signs. I mean, that still is my number one running group in the contest, but then water signs, fire signs for the ego, water signs for the emotions. And now I'm wondering if the air signs are right up with them. So air signs approach the world from their minds, their thoughts, their communications. In other words, they perceive things in an abstract way, in an intellectual way. Any event that you can take, let's say that a child experiences a trauma when they are young, like their parent dying. A water sign person will experience the separation with that parent at an acute level, at a very emotional level. With the fire signs, there can be a similar kind of emotional response, but it may be more philosophical. It may be thinking about the meaning of life and being afraid of maybe dying themselves, not understanding the likelihood of somebody dying when they're a certain age and all of that. They're thinking in terms of death as a concept itself while still having that kind of emotional response. The water signs it's really about their memories of that parent, their connection to that parent, purely subjective. The earth signs, it is the idea of something being there and then not being there, the concept of losing that reliable energy, if you will, where, so the trauma, I mean, of course, every child feels a connection to the parent emotionally at some level. I'm not saying that these other signs don't have emotions, but I'm saying what the primary nature of the trauma. For the earth signs, may be more about the physical aspect of here one day and gone the next. And then that translates into them trying to control material objects. And so with the water signs, it would be controlling people or feeling like abandonment issues. With the fire signs, maybe questioning the nature of life, like what is the purpose of doing things if it's only going to lead to death, or something like philosophical. With the air signs, it can be, being able to describe everything that is going on, but it's like keeping the emotions at bay by a lot of imagery, mental imagery and verbal discussion. So the constructs of the mind protect the child from the pain or attempt to do so. And this is how the air signs approach all kinds of emotions. They tend to create an abstract version of them by talking. They may talk about their emotions, but the feeling may not be there. You may notice with an air sign when you're dealing with them, even in the context of, any kind of close relationship, that they shy away from strong emotions, maybe even positive emotions, that also makes them uncomfortable, that they prefer to be very rational and analytical rather than deal with that. And they might view you, if you're a fire sign or a water sign, as rather hysterical. Not meaning funny, meaning like that you're off your rocker, that you're out of control emotionally. I think that can be one of the main reasons that romantic relationships between the element of fire and air sometimes end up not working, because even though they're compatible elements, the air sign might think that the fire sign is too emotive and they don't like that. But sometimes people don't like something when they're uncomfortable with it themselves, when they have a hard time expressing it. So, what I just said for fire signs goes double for water signs. And air and water are very challenged when it comes to compatibility, because the water signs are very subjective and the air signs are very objective. So the point is that air signs are navigating life with this same belief anyway. They're always trying to keep everything analytical and logical. And it seems illogical to be very emotional. And in relationships, this is the time when people are expected to share of themselves at a deeper level. And for these signs, that can be the time when they notice that they are lacking the depth of emotion. And I'm not talking about hysteria. I'm talking about even love, even something that we would deem positive. Before anyone who happens to be listening to this who is an air sign objects and says, this is totally false, I'm emotional, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about the pure archetype of the air signs. It's very possible that somebody has a lot of water. A Libra has a lot of Scorpio. An Aquarius has a lot of Pisces. And this will change things up. However, when you're dealing with that archetypal air sign person, you know that this is true, that this is how they operate in a very detached way. Well, for the narcissists among these signs, this is something that they do in a very methodical way. And this is what makes me wonder if these could be the most dangerous of all the narcissists, because with the air signs, there can be this actual ability to kind of step back enough where they can actually form a strategy. And there's nothing to stop them from thinking that that is wrong, that, hey, wait a second, why am I planning this manipulation? I mean, you could make a case that a water sign who manipulates is doing so almost unconsciously, that it's part of being a water sign to be manipulative, not necessarily a good trait, but a trait. And so there's not that kind of premeditation about it. Whereas with the air signs, that could be exactly what's going on, where they have enough detachment where they can clearly see all the chess pieces and they can decide how they're going to, what piece they're going to move, and also anticipate the other person's, move and have it all like 10 steps ahead or 10 moves ahead. So the control that narcissists desire, or even we could call it, in addition to the control, the drama that they desire, which is really negative energy that they feed upon, hence the reason that I think that they are energy vampires. And that's, when we talk about energy vampires, we're probably just talking about narcs. But now I'm thinking, as I'm talking here, is that sometimes they may create drama in order to have some kind of way to experience feeling. It's like those people that are cutters, who cut their arms when they are feeling a lot of stress. They say they do it so that they can feel alive, so they can feel something because they feel so numb inside. I'm wondering, this is just a spontaneous revelation, if this is a similar thing of what's happening with narcissists in general, because supposedly they don't have emotion. I mean, they just don't have empathy. So by extension, we could say emotions in general. But they do have a certain, makeup in their nature, just like any person, where they will have certain traits, and if they were to have emotional responses, they would be of a certain variety. And with the air signs being the least, the earth signs are pretty detached as well, but one of the least emotionally kind of expressive elements, perhaps they start drama in order to, feed off of feelings that they do not possess naturally. And it seems like it's the negative ones that they want to generate more than anything else. But you will notice sometimes that they try to be, and I'm talking about narcissists in general, that they will try to be the perfect specimen before they turn. So it almost makes me think that they want to experience the range of emotions, the positive as well as the negative. Of course, the more likely scenario is that they're trying to lure somebody into their trap, which is really sad because there are a lot of people who are looking for love and they come across one of these types and it's just a nightmare. It turns into a nightmare. So the reason I brought up drama with the air signs is because in the tarot, the swords, the suit of swords connects to air. And one thing that always kind of puzzled me is they talked about conflict as being one of the key words for the swords. And I was thinking to myself, well, conflict, I mean, the air signs, they don't like conflict. They don't like emotions, so why would they want conflict? But it's not that simple because everyone has to experience their emotions in one way or the other. Even if you don't like them, you can sometimes triangulate, pit two people against each other, sit back with a bag of popcorn and watch them fight. And sometimes that can be, maybe that's what these signs do best of all, because they really don't want to get in the fray a lot of times. And so this is the perfect way to kind of experience that negativity without having to be touched by it personally. So using communication to manipulate, getting inside your head, getting you to question reality, that's gaslighting. And they probably do it better than anyone based upon that natural intelligence. That's the other thing you have to remember. These people are naturally very intelligent, and that can make for a very devious individual. The other thing that they can do is ghost people and make ghosting an art form, okay? Ghosting is when somebody abruptly drops out of your life. With the air signs, especially I would say with Gemini and Aquarius, this is done. Even if we're not talking about a narcissist, but somebody that maybe you have dated or dealt with, it could even be like a friend actually. You may notice with an air sign friend or acquaintance or whatever, that if they have ghosted you, and you think back to it, maybe you had some kind of a conflict with this individual, and you didn't know that they were that upset or what have you, and all of a sudden they disappeared, and maybe you tried to contact them, couldn't get them. It could simply be for those types of people that they don't like conflict, and it's almost easier just to disappear, rather than having to confront you with their anger at your behavior or their disappointment or whatever the negative emotion was. Or if they wanted to break up with you and they just didn't have the heart to do it. Even a Libra I could see doing that. It's almost easier for these types of people to just totally cut it off. But with the narcissist, remember that they are trying to wound. They are, it's not a situation of trying to actually protect somebody's feelings or protect their own feelings. It's about being malicious. And they pull the plug because that is a form of manipulation as well. It's like they are trying to make you aware that at any moment you can't count on anyone in life, even like the person that's supposed to be closest to you. And of course that's going to have a very kind of unsettling effect if somebody suddenly disappears from your life who you had a very close relationship with. So that can be a form of emotional manipulation. So let's talk about the individual signs. With Gemini, there can be the tendency towards being a con artist. I think Libras can be this as well, because they can be very charming. With Gemini, there's also a cleverness that, like a very entertaining personality. I wrote here, flim-flam man, because Gemini is actually connected to the magician in the tarot. And you think of sleight of hand, right? Gemini is a mutable air sign, so they can morph into what they need to be in order to attract a particular person. So they can be like this person who mirrors you perfectly, and you think, this is the perfect match. We're so much alike. And that person may be putting on an act in order to make you think that you're of the same mind, that maybe you're soulmates, twin flames, because they seem to just go along with everything that you're about. And meanwhile, they're trying to gain your confidence, and they also are trying to get inside of your head. I got distracted because I was just thinking of that term, confidence man. I think that means like a con artist too, doesn't it? But by the way, when I say man, I'm not talking about gender. And these are just how they don't say flim-flam woman, but there are plenty of flim-flam women out here. So that's certainly the case. But in any case, with Gemini, there can be I think we could say like a used car salesman type of personality. So there could even be, I could say, financial types of exploitation. I was talking about this with the earth signs, but in terms of how this could actually manifest, yes, I think that perhaps the Gemini narcissist might try to do that. And the reason being so that they can have that freedom, because the air signs, like the fire signs, want freedom, but that means that if you have total freedom, that means that you're not working for someone. So you have to have some kind of job. It's a lot easier when you can con people out of money than having to actually work a straight job. And this can be their job. And even being that's why I say, like, any kind of actual job that they have, like as a salesperson, which Gemini is definitely associated with, they can involve those traits, those toxic traits of manipulation, of telling lies. I think Gemini is one of the signs that would use dishonesty. They say that narcissists are liars, are pathological liars. And I'm sure that is true in many cases, but I don't believe that's true 100%. I think sometimes this is what is so dangerous about narcissists, is that they can speak to you very plainly, and they may, like for instance, like with a fire sign, use the truth as a club over the head. So the truth, they may, mention things about you that are true, that may be your weaknesses, and state them as reasons why you haven't gotten to where you need to be, why you're not good enough, and so on and so forth. So the truth can be used as a weapon very easily, and there's no disputing it, because even you may admit that you have these negative traits or weaknesses, whatever you want to call them, these flaws. And they're just like putting it out there because they don't really care about your self-improvement. They just want to find any weakness within you because that is part of their modus operandi in order to get you to be in a weakened state and they having control, and they're having control over you. So with the air signs, it could be trying to get you to question your sanity even because your perceptions. And with Gemini, lying, changing, they may change their spots like a leopard does. No, leopards don't change their spots. But Gemini does change their spots. And just being very changeable, even their own opinions may change, and they may say, I don't believe that. And you say, but yesterday you said this. And that kind of like shifting the tide of opinions and lying, that makes you think, wow, maybe this person is right. Maybe I just thought of this, I perceived this situation in the wrong way. And all the while, you weren't wrong, they were lying. With Libra, the arena becomes the romantic area of life. Libra can present themselves as the perfect lover. Flattery is very common among Libra narcissists. They are flattering you usually for things that you are, maybe they are things that are good about you and they can see them very clearly. But do they really care about those good traits, or are they just bringing them up in order to get what they want? This is where you have to understand about narcissists. They can be very accurate in their perceptions, but they don't necessarily have feelings behind them. So when they're praising you and telling you what a beautiful soul you are, they may have just complete emptiness inside behind that remark. And when they're saying, oh, you have these terrible qualities, they may not even really care about those qualities anyway. They're just using those qualities to make you feel insecure. The common denominator is that they just don't feel. And that's why they have to generate this drama and feed off of it like a vampire feeds off of blood. So with Libra, they may try to please you, give you what you want. Libra, it might be generosity. They might buy you things. They may, like I said, flatter you, but it doesn't seem empty because they tell you very well-placed compliments. They may try to be the perfect romantic partner. I think of the Knight of Cups in the Tarot, of just the knight in shining armor, the perfect female version of the knight in shining armor, the Empress. I don't know. That is associated with Libra too, by the way, and Taurus, so females. But that sense of, yeah, like for a Libra person can also use their looks to get in the door with you. They tend to be physically very attractive. I'm not saying 100% of the time, but they tend to be. And this can apply for a man or a woman. This can be a tool of manipulation because there are some people that are particularly susceptible to other people's looks, that's such an important thing for them, that their partner be good looking. And I think that when that is the case, that, if you are the type of person who really that's so important for you, for your partner to be good looking, maybe you're a Libra or you have it strong in your chart, you need to question that. And the reason is because I think one of the biggest ways to fool somebody as a narcissist is when that person is too easily impressed with the surface. So if you're the kind of person who tends to get swayed by appearances, then, and this can be anything. I mean, even advertisers, they just have an amazing commercial or a trailer for a film, and they pick all the best parts, and then you go to the movie and it's utter crap, and you're like, but the trailer was amazing. Well, the trailer was only 2 minutes long. It's easy to condense something into 2 minutes and make it look good. It's easy to present a facade of beauty and having a very ugly inside of the person. So you have to be less superficial, because that will make you vulnerable to these types of people. Not just Libra con artists, but or narcissists, but anyone, or any type of manipulation to try to get you to buy something or what have you, or to experience something. When they present it in such glowing terms, if you don't do any kind of deeper investigation, you may just get taken for a ride. I had mentioned about flattery in Libra, and let's just take it out with all of these signs. If for any reason, and this could be, I'll even take it out for all the signs. If you're dealing with someone and you have just recently met them and they are flattering you excessively, that's a red flag. If they seem too good to be true, that's a red flag. Now, I did not come up with this myself. I think I watched it on one of the narcissist videos, and they made such a great point. And what they said was that compliments and flattery are different. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that flattery can actually be synonymous with a compliment. But the way they differentiated it is that a compliment is something where somebody says, "You look nice today," and maybe they're walking down the street, but they don't want anything from you. They're not trying to hit on you. They're just like stating a fact in their eyes. Or, "You really sing wonderfully. Boy, you're a great singer." Flattery is, "Oh man, you have the most amazing voice. Do you want to go? I have a home studio. You want to come and see it?" So in other words, there's an ulterior motive attached to it. It's not just a standalone statement. But I would say, too, that even if it is a standalone statement, if people are bombing you with these flattering statements, be very, I was going to say nervous, but careful. Because flattery, can turn into buttering somebody up. And that is where it gets dangerous. And if you're listening to this and you are, I was going to say a Leo, there's certain signs that just bask in flattery more than others. They just love being praised. And they can be very vulnerable to narcissists who know this weak spot in them. And you could say it's because of that need to be admired, perhaps. And I don't fault anybody for wanting to have people notice their positive traits and comment on them. But we're not talking about that. Remember, we're talking about flattery as a manipulative tool, and how somebody like a Libra specifically is very good at doing that, because Libra is always aware of the other. Libra rules the 7th house of committed partnership, and its opposite sign is Aries, which rules the 1st house of the self. So you see the two sides of that those complementary signs exhibit the two different polarities, where one is the self and one is the partnership. And so Librans tend to really be hyper aware of the other in their relationships. And so this can make the Libran narcissist very good at being able to navigate relationships and get what they want from them, and appear at first to be the perfect lover, the ideal mate, the ideal lover. With Aquarius, this can be somebody who is a very good gaslighter, because Aquarius is very analytical. I could see like a Gemini. Actually, I would say all of them can do this. One thing I'm going to go back about Libra and say that Libra is associated with the law and lawyers. And so one thing about Libra is it can see all sides of an issue. And this is what makes them great as lawyers, because of the communication skills. And so in terms of, can you imagine being gaslighted by a Libra person who can, it's almost like a prosecuting attorney who can condemn you simply by bringing up certain facts which may be true, drawing a conclusion which is false, and making you think that, yeah, you're the one, turning it on you, making you think that you're the one in the wrong. And doing so with this superior intellect. Aquarius, I could see Aquarians projecting a lot of their own unrealized feelings or unacknowledged feelings, unprocessed feelings onto others, and thinking that others are actually doing what they're doing. Because there could be a lack of awareness emotionally that gets kind of like projected onto others in a very vivid way. I was wondering about how this all works with projection, because this is another trait that you notice a lot with narcissists, is that they don't have the ability, it seems, to really absorb their own feelings, because they're either wildly out of touch with their feelings or they really don't have many feelings at all. But then on top of that, on top of their tendency to just project onto others, they can really make the case that you're the one that is doing all these things, and you might believe it if they're good enough at it. This is what I was talking about at the beginning, about it being so dangerous, because they have those communication skills that are above and beyond many other people, and they also have a high intelligence. So they can analyze your behavior and come to the conclusion that this is why you were doing something wrong. And meanwhile, all along, they are the ones who are feeling those feelings or thinking those thoughts, but they're putting it onto you and sometimes maybe convincing you that you're the one doing it. That's what gaslighting is. That's projection, but gaslighting is convincing you of things that you were not thinking of, or, kind of messing with your mind in that way. And I think Aquarius can really F with your mind. I wrote mind effer par excellence, because Aquarius, I think, is the most attached out of all the air signs. That's my feeling. One reason is that Uranus is the ruler, Saturn, but, mainly I think of Uranus. And there's that sense of complete, almost chaos with Uranus because of its unpredictability. I think that Aquarians can really ghost in a incredibly abrupt way. Or just in general, if the person has the moon in Aquarius, and so it represents their emotional nature, this may really come into play, where they just disappear or they just become cold. The person thinks that they are in this relationship. Now, let's say that the moon in Aquarius person has a sun in Scorpio. And so sometimes they seem almost too involved in the relationship, too like connected. And then all of a sudden they totally become cold. So they blow hot and cold with that combination, water and air. But then on top of that, they just kind of like, it's just nothing almost, or where they just completely go blank. That can indicate that they experienced that growing up, or maybe they had a mother, because the moon is the mother. If this, I'm talking specifically, the moon is in Aquarius, and they did not get proper nurturing growing up, and so there's a sense of disconnect within them that they in turn project onto another person, or reenact, we could say. Again, why do people reenact things? Because they want to feel powerful. They want to feel in control of the situation. And as I said before, some of these tendencies may not be pure narcissism. They may be borderline personality. They may just simply be a person who has deep traumas that they have not healed, integrated, and they project them onto other people, or they recreate it in their relationships. And yet now they are the perpetrator of that. And this is oftentimes why you will see a person who did not have bonding within his family of origin. You know, for instance, being adopted, sometimes you will get people who end up with emotional problems growing up. I'm not saying 100% of the time, but they can, because of that break between their family of origin, their parents and things like that. And they have a hard time with life in general, but maybe even with relationships, where the fear of the other person leaving becomes so great that either they do the pushing away so they don't have to experience it first, or so that they're testing the other person to see if they're going to stay, or they can even simply refuse to commit to relationships because they're so afraid of what that represents. And with all of these signs, with Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, but especially with Gemini and Aquarius, there may be a great fear of settling down. And so you can have the narcissist who goes from one relationship to the other, a serial monogamy within narcissism. And they groom the next victim as they are leaving you in the dust. And I believe they leave the person in the dust maybe when you are trying to get them to commit. They have put on this great act of, hey, you know, I'm the perfect partner and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like buying into it. And then all of a sudden the plug gets pulled. And you're like, okay, what just happened? Now what? And they're just shrugging their shoulders. And it's like, whatever. It's not about, it really for them is not about caring that they have presented a false scenario, that they have no intention of actually continuing with. And so they're on to the next situation. And that gives them stimulation as well. Even with Gemini, even with Libra, I think this can be the case. And I'm not going to say the actor's name, One, because I can't totally remember it, but I just don't want to get into personal things. But I remember there was this actor who was a Libra. And I didn't see him in anything. I don't know if he was a soap opera star, but he was somebody, I think it was like a nighttime soap opera star. And he was very good looking, this man. And he was a Libra, I think I said that. Very charming. And I noticed when I used to read tabloids all the time that he was always getting married. He was like getting divorced, getting married, getting divorced, getting married. And I think the last count was like 5, and he wasn't that old at that time. So I was thinking to myself, why does somebody do this? Now I'm starting to think as I talk that maybe the marriage part of it, because you don't even have to get married, you can just go from one relationship to the next. Maybe the marriage part is narcissistic supply as well, because it's a big ceremony and you can have everybody witness it. Another narcissist channel was talking about the wedding in that context. So now I'm thinking these multiple marriages serve as more supply for the narcissist. But on the other hand, but what I want to say is it doesn't have to be that way. It could just be serial relationships. But instead of staying with that first person, they keep breaking up with each partner. One, because this person is making demands on them and they don't want, it's not a two-way street in the relationship. It's a one-way street. That's the thing that you have to understand with these people. You don't expect to get your needs met. It's all about them. They're the center of the universe. And they may give you some kind of illusion that you are an equal partner. And because they are air signs, these people can be very verbal about talking about issues and problems, but you will notice that nothing ever changes because it's all the flim-flam. Con artist, rap that they're giving you has nothing to do with what is going to happen or what is happening. And you might just kind of like be given this stick that the future is going to be better, and you'll find out that that is far from the truth. So any of these signs can leave you in the lurch at the end of the day, now that I think about it, even the Libra. Now, I'm saying the Libra narcissist, not the typical Libra. But part of this is because they don't want to make a commitment. They don't want to get deeper emotionally because they may have been traumatized. They don't want to deal with life. They are hollow inside. They simply cannot bring their emotional chops because they don't have them. And, things like that. But it can also be because they have found you have found them out to some degree. You've noticed that they are full of it. And maybe you've even called them on it. And that might be when they start grooming the next person because they know it's only a matter of time. It is like the con artist. Once the people in one town start to realize that the con artist is a con artist, then they're off to the next town. So in this case, it's off to the next relationship. Some of these people love therapy, and that can feed into their narcissism even, I think. Come to think of it, I think it really can, because I wouldn't even be surprised if nowadays therapists tend to butter up their patients so that they can keep them as patients. If they, especially if they know the person is a narcissist, they know that if they challenge that person will walk. And that person may even complain to their supervisor that they are very unprofessional in how they deal with their patients. Because these people can be, I'm not just talking about air signs, I'm talking about in general. Narcissists can be the kind of people who try to, ruin other people's lives because of their own narcissistic rage and their sense of entitlement. So if you even question their behavior, their motives. They can just like fly into a rage. And if you're dealing with them professionally, they could try to ruin you. They could complain to the manager at a store, or they could try to, complain to your corporate overlords or whoever, like contact the bar if you're a lawyer and they don't like their interactions with you, and try to make you out to be unprofessional, like they did something terrible to you. So the bottom line here is it all comes back to you. And I try to end each of these videos with some action steps that you can take that are specific for these elements. So for the element of air, don't be too impressed with somebody's ability to talk. By the way, this includes politicians because a lot of them are, to me, now I think most politicians are probably narcissists, because some politicians, they can talk a great game, can't they? Do they deliver? So look for results. Don't look for talk. And this is also about being impressed by appearances, whether it's how somebody looks or how they talk. It's not about the surface. It's about the actual content. And so if somebody comes on too strong, if they're trying to flatter you in a major way, not just giving you one compliment, but just bombarding you with, oh, you're so this, you're so that, be very wary of that. Don't fall in the trap of, it's not about saying that you don't have those qualities. Maybe that person is speaking about every single true quality that you have. But still, why do they need to do this? What are they trying to gain? I understand that sometimes when people have low self-esteem, they tend not to believe anything good coming from other people. That's not what I'm saying here. Really embrace every good thing that somebody says about you, but don't take it on face value that they are just doing it for no reason. Be cautious, especially if you've just met this person. One thing I think I didn't mention about Gemini that I think is particularly true of Gemini is because it's a mutable sign, they can tend to be very mercurial. They can tend to be the sign, because they're ruled by Mercury, but they can tend to be hard to get a hold of. And as a result, they may not be available when you try to text them, when you try to call them. Maybe they accept your text, but they never call. That could be a red flag too, if you're available and they're not. If they are, very verbose when they want to be, and then they are completely silent when they need to be talking to you, when you're trying to talk to them and you get some kind of silence on their end of things. That could be part of the manipulation too. But in general, get to know these people. Don't allow somebody to sweep you off your feet, because that is something that I associate with narcs, is that they try to get somebody very quickly into relationships. And that to me is kind of like wanting to get you hooked into them, get you in their web before they show their real self, which they know is coming any day now. They can't maintain that facade for very long. There's too much negativity within them to keep themselves from eventually revealing who they truly are. And then all bets are off. anyone who is talking a good game, who is saying things, a fast talker, is, who seems kind of insincere. They talk about things in a very shallow way, glib way, which is, I guess, kind of shallow. And, they're never like, especially, I think especially, I could be, all of the signs could do it. I think Gemini and Libra are especially prone to being can be very like shallow on the surface, silly, bubbly, silly, glossy conversations that are pretty, taste great, less filling type of conversations. So just be on the lookout for people like that when you're trying to talk about something serious and they keep it silly on the surface. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there, but I think you get my point. And thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.